In this episode, I'm going to be exploring the exciting new image generation capabilities of Chat GPT 4.0 and how teachers can use it to create engaging, visually rich resources across the curriculum. The AI Academia podcast is a weekly podcast helping educators like you leverage AI in your everyday practice. I'm your host, Andy Fisher, and thanks for joining me. AI art, like all generative AI, has come a long way in the last 18 months. It wasn't so long ago that it was almost impossible to create a scene with a realistic person in it. Hands were a particular challenge for the models, and people invariably ended up with too few or too many fingers. This gradually improved last year, but it was still tough to get consistent characters or reliable text to accompany the images, and so it had limited application for classroom resources. All that changed, however, when a new native image generation model was released by OpenAI in late March this year. I can honestly say that this has been one of the most exciting and magical AI experiences that I've enjoyed since I started exploring this field. But first, here's a little potted history of AI art creation, just so we can appreciate where we have now arrived. In the early days of generative AI, the first models were generative adversarial networks, or GANs for short. Imagine a school for forgers where pairs are teamed up for training. The first in each pair is a generator whose job is to paint a convincing portrait, let's say, of an elephant by Degas. And the other member of the pair, the discriminator, must see if the outcome is convincing or not. The discriminator gives feedback to the generator each time so they can gradually improve by trial and error learning. They're engaged in a continuous and creative battle of wits. The generator is trying to trick the discriminator into thinking the output is a real Degas, and he in turn is trying to tell the forgeries from the real artist's work. Through this adversarial process, both sharpen their skills, culminating in a team capable of producing highly convincing images over time. And for a while, GANs dominated, but then along came diffusion models. They employ a different approach. Diffusion models are trained on vast arrays of images of subjects to which increasing amounts of random noise are introduced until the original image is unrecognizable. And then the model learns to make its way back to a version of the original. With enough practice and text prompts, it can start from noise and generate an entirely original depiction of the target. Dedicated AI generator platforms like Midjourney or DALL-E are examples of diffusion models. In this case, imagine a sculptor starting with a solid block of marble. It's initially shapeless and rough, similar to the random noise used at the start of a diffusion model process. Gradually, the sculptor chips away small fragments, refining the details with each precise stroke. Over time, the block transforms into a clearly defined and detailed sculpture. Then we have specialist LoRAs, which stands for low rank adaptation models. These are the models used to fine-tune something which is designed to consistently produce a likeness of a face, object, or a style of art. If you've seen adverts for headshot generators or AI-generated influencers, then this is likely the kind of model under the hood. The model begins with a baseline diffusion model, and then it's fed a series of images of the target. So, for example, all the thumbnails for my channel on YouTube are created using a LoRA, which was trained on between 30 and 40 photographs of me. They were snapshots taken in different conditions from different angles. I've got different facial expressions and I'm wearing different outfits. The model then finds the commonalities to arrive at an Andy model that will create a fair likeness of me every time. And then I just need to prompt for a man dressed as an astronaut or a man swimming underwater with a shark. And as if by magic, I get cinematic style images that would have taken hours and hours of work in Photoshop. It's a simple and cost-effective process, and it's the reason why I stepped away from headshot photography. Not so long ago, I photographed headshots for actors, those looking for a decent LinkedIn profile image, and sometimes for businesses. It was a side hustle that I fit in around my teaching commitments. I was pretty good. My degree in communication studies involved modules in photography, and over the years I'd built up all the equipment and the skills needed to operate semi-professionally. But a year ago, as I started spending more time using AI tools, I gave up my studio space, sold most of my equipment, and shut down my website because I could see the writing on the wall. Much as I enjoyed photographing clients, and while I'm sure there will still be a place for some professional studios in the future, I could see that LoRA models would allow a user to upload some snaps from their phone's camera roll, and less than an hour later, they would have an array of excellent looking images. There'd be no travel involved, no hairstyling or makeup, no need to worry about outfits, and the cost was less than 10% of what most photographers have to charge to cover their costs and make a reasonable profit. It was a no-brainer, and this is just one example of how there will be an inevitable shift in employment as AI continues to improve. Businesses will often use LoRAs for product design or marketing purposes so that the unique features and colors of their product are consistently reproduced. Again, given the cost of product photography, these models can save thousands of pounds and can be used for research and development as well as augmenting current advertising campaigns. Now, for teaching purposes, LoRAs probably have limited application, and as we go on to see, the native image models just released can do a pretty good job of giving us similar results without needing to fine-tune the model. So now let's talk a little bit about tool calling so you can better appreciate the magnitude of the change that's just happened. When you ask Copilot, or in the past Chat GPT, to create an image, it looks like all the work happens in the model, but the large language model actually outsources the task to a dedicated art generator, which produces the image and then sends it back. The large language model serves it up to us and takes all the credit. The art generator behind ChatGPT and Microsoft Pilot is DALL-E. So DALL-E's limitations became the limitations of the large language models which used it. Have you ever had an experience like this before? You ask for an image, let's say an illustration that represents the water cycle. The image comes back and it's okay, but the text is all garbled and one of the stages has been missed out. So you prompt again, explaining the changes you want, and the large language model chirpily admits the error and promises to fix it. A new image is generated, but it's literally a new image. It bears little resemblance to the first one. And while the missing stage in the cycle is now there, new errors have emerged and the text is even worse. You try a third time, asking it to leave all the text off because you've decided to add it afterwards with Canva or Photoshop. And just focus on the stages of the water cycle. And this time you get a third entirely new image, and it's so close but still not quite there. The large language model is apologetic, promises to try harder, but by this stage you've had enough and make do with a photocopy from a textbook or a hand-drawn alternative. The reason this is happening is that your AI model can't see the output from DALL-E. It just assumes that it has faithfully matched the prompt provided. It's like a director, a cinematographer, and an editor collaborating in different countries on a new feature-length movie, and their communication is limited to postcards. The director, based in LA, messages his vision to the cinematographer in Australia, who promises to bring the film to life through the lens. He shoots his dailies, and then he sends the footage to the editor in France with a new set of postcards to help him craft it into the final film, but the editor doesn't have the suite of FX tools needed, and some of the detail is lost in translation as the cinematographer attempts to convey the nuance of the original prompts from the editor in a new language. The editor sends it back to the director without sending duplicate postcards to the cinematographer. The director sends a new, somewhat terse postcard to the cinematographer, pointing out that the ways in which the footage has been returned is not matching the brief. The cinematographer apologizes profusely, promises to put things right, and then sets about scribbling on his stack of cards, his French dictionary open, and round we go again. Given these limitations, that particular movie is unlikely to win any Oscars, despite the best efforts of all parties. For the past year or so, this has been the state of play with AI art. Proprietary diffusion models like Flux, Ideogram, and Midjourney have been making steady improvements, and there are whole courses on how to prompt each model to get the best from them, but they remain both impressive and frustratingly limited at the same time. And that brings us to the present with OpenAI's native art generator built into the 4.0 model. It's available to both free and paid users, although at the moment, due to massive demand, free users are limited to just 3 generations a day. As a native model, the need for tool calling has gone. It's as if the editor has been fired and the cinematographer has upskilled to both shoot the footage and edit it as well. With this refined feedback loop with one shared language, all kinds of new opportunities become possible. And in this case, the postcards have been dumped and the two can communicate by email with attachments to help guide their collaboration. So what are the strengths of this new native image generation model? Why is this version making such big waves? Well, for one, the image quality is leagues ahead of most other models. We're talking photorealistic details, clean line work, and very few of the visual glitches that plagued earlier attempts. If you need a diagram of the digestive system or a representation of the great chain of being, you can pretty much get a workable image in a single well-crafted prompt. Second, text generation. This is a big one. You can now embed clear, coherent text directly into images. Think labels on diagrams, headings on posters, and even whole infographics without needing to bounce into Canva or PowerPoint afterwards. Third, and this is the bit that got my creative juices flowing, GPT 4.0 handles diverse visual styles brilliantly. You may have seen the flood of Studio Ghibli style images that have been doing the rounds on social media, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. You can prompt for an image in the style of a Renaissance oil painting, 8-bit graphics, a pencil sketch, or a watercolor, and the model can handle those requests first time. But here is what I think is the most significant thing about the new Chat GPT native image model. In the past, the way that we prompted for an image generation was really inefficient. Each output would be entirely siloed from future generations, as I've just described. It would be like employing a busload of graphic designers, and each has one chance to get your prompt right before being fired, and the next in line has a go, but none of them can talk to each other or learn from their mistakes. Now, it's far more like having the designer in the room with you. You describe what you want, they do a preliminary sketch, and then you can each go back and forth until you arrive at something that matches your initial vision, or indeed improves upon your first idea, because the process is collaborative. I ask for an image of King Canute sitting on his throne as the tide washes in. The first image is good, but he's facing away from the viewer, and I wanted his face showing. So I create a new prompt using natural language, something like, have the king face the camera with an angry expression. And the next iteration preserves the shoreline, the king's costume, the composition, and so on. They're faithful to the original, but now he is indeed facing forward. As an afterthought, I ask for a title in Gothic script, which reads, Time and Tide Waits for No Man, at the bottom of the image. And sure enough, the third image provides this, usually error-free, whilst again preserving the other details. This conversational refinement makes the model far more intuitive for classroom use. You can say, can you make this more colourful? Or please add a speech bubble to the character on the left? Or could you please go for something that might appeal to younger students? And it just does it. And finally, there's the multimodal input to be considered. You can feed it both text and images so it will match the composition, style, or theme you've uploaded. Rather than relying on careful text prompting, you can share an example of the color palette, the character, or the setting you want to use, and the model will draw on those resources in generating its output. Put all of these features together, the quality of the images and the range of styles available, the integration of reliable text, natural language prompting, iterative collaborative workflow, and multimodal inputs, and you have a turbocharged resource generation tool. Here are just some of the ways you might put it to the test in your own classroom practice. You could take your own portrait, convert it into a Pixar or anime style character, add your name underneath and pin it on your door so the students will know that's where to find you. You can improve the visuals of any presentation or handout resource with bespoke and relevant images. You can create labeled infographics and timelines to support topic revision. You can create professional-looking booklet covers, posters, and flyers for topic guides, school events, plays, extracurricular clubs, and upcoming field trips. You can create graphic novel pages with dialogue to convey a key concept or scene from a text you're studying. You can create bespoke celebration postcards to send home when a pupil achieves a particular milestone or exceeds expectations. And finally, if you're in a position to allow students access to the model, they can take these same use cases and produce compelling images themselves, so they could design an illustration to go with their short story or poem. They could create a visual summary of the material covered in a unit, or make their own illustrated guide to a topic of your choice. We really are only limited by our imaginations. My advice, for what it's worth, would be to start small. Challenge yourself to produce one resource this week which could add value to your learners, and then build from there. Try to be clear and specific in your prompt. Learn how you can iterate back and forth with the model, and always keep an eye out for accuracy. Look, there's no question that tools like Chat GPT 4.0 are going to become a bigger part of education in the months and years to come. But I think what's really exciting about this particular update is that it gives us new ways to see, literally. It bridges that gap between the abstract and the concrete, the imagined and the visualized. And in doing so, it gives students another way to express what they know and what they're curious about. Used thoughtfully, this could be a turning point for how we teach and how our students learn. And so this brings us to the end of the first season of the AI Academia podcast. I'll be taking a couple of weeks away from this project now as I prep materials for my GCSE students as they get ready for study leave. It'll also give me a chance to reflect on what direction I'd like to take things in for season 2. I've had some really useful feedback suggesting that while the content is appreciated, the nature of the topic might be better served as a series of YouTube tutorials rather than an audio-only podcast, and I'm certainly open to that idea. Also, creating a weekly show has been a good challenge, but I think it might take some pressure off and allow me to offer more value if I shift to a bi-weekly output of some kind. So if you have any thoughts about these suggestions, do let me know and I'll take your views into account as I plan out season 2. Thanks for listening. I hope you found some useful takeaways from the conversation. Please do spread the word if you think others would like the show, and do check out the AI Academia YouTube channel where you will find practical tutorials to complement the topics covered on this podcast. Have a great few weeks, and I look forward to catching up again soon.